This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. Happy Holy Week, the week that changed the world, as Archbishop Fulton Sheen famously said. We hope all of you had a wonderful Palm Sunday. If you are listening to this the day that it comes out, it is Tuesday of Holy Week, and we hope that this week for all of you brings you closer to the joy and the suffering and the ultimate resurrection of the many events that we will meditate on this week, leading, of course, to Easter season, which kicks off on Easter Sunday. So, beautiful week, one of my favorite weeks of the year. And, of course, tomorrow, for those Holy Week nerds out there, and you know who you are, tomorrow is Spy Wednesday. One of the great days, one of the tragic days throughout the year. Spy Wednesday is when Judas is out there sneaking around, talking to people, trying to sell out Jesus. And that's why Wednesday of Holy Week is traditionally known as Spy Wednesday. If you want to stump your pastor or priest or friend or theology teacher with some nerdy stuff, wish them a happy Spy Wednesday tomorrow and be ready to be labeled a weirdo. Somebody who has been labeled a weirdo most of his life is my co-host, and that is Mr. Steve Carlin.
Yeah, happy Spy Wednesday.
Well, happy Spy Wednesday Eve. It's now the Tuesday before. Heather is also here, and she celebrates Spy Wednesday. Yeah. Good Spy Wednesday movies. The entire Mission Impossible series.
You know, my son has a thing, which I don't know. I like question whether I should allow this to go on under my roof.
It puts me in a good mood whenever I hear this.
Me
too.
He has friends over and watches spy movies every Spy Wednesday.
That's about as Spy Wednesday nerdy as you can get. Because now there's like a coordinated effort with text messages and stuff of what time we're meeting and all that.
And he's in college now, but last year when he did this as a senior, I was like, what's Dr. Joy, your philosophy teacher or your theology teacher, think about this? He's like a very learned man, Dr. Joy. He's published, he's cited. He's like, he asked if you could come over.
He's a respected man in the community. He thinks we're idiots. No, he wants to come. Yeah, that's great. I think last year we discussed what the cuisine is for Spy Wednesday. We didn't really come up with anything. I said hummus, which is just the generic. Well, they're in the Middle East. I'm sure they're eating hummus. But you really don't know, like, what did Judas eat?
Yeah.
I don't think we want to imitate that.
Unleavened bread.
Yeah, pita.
Pita bread.
Plus, there was the Holy Week podcast that we recorded many years ago, in which we recorded it well in advance of the season, and we're not in a proper penitential spirit, and we're wisecracking about Judas, and got some feedback, and probably some accurate feedback from the listener.
I still disagree with some of that feedback. I like our comments on Holy Week. I think they were good, and so. But yes, this year our disposition has matured.
Ah, yes. I like
so
that. We've evolved like Obama.
We've evolved like Obama. Talk about somebody who's part of Spy Wednesday who sold this country out. That's Obama. Maybe Obama Good Friday. We should rename it. The day that Obama killed Jesus. That's really what happened. I have a comment about this since we're going on this. I know it's been a while since the State of the Union, but as an American, one of my favorite things that's happening that I don't see how it's going to get old. And I think the older Trump gets, the better it will get. Because you probably don't notice, but if you followed him since I started following him, I watched his entire speech, CPAC of 2015. Like, he's a joke. He's not even in the race. Everybody's laughing at him. There's like 40 people in the audience. I mean, it's really kind of a joke. The speech is the same thing he's saying now, which is hysterical. But if you look at him from then to now, he's much more religious in his comments.
Oh.
Okay. But my favorite Trumpism is him bringing God back.
Yeah, religion has made a comeback.
Religion's made a comeback. God is very happy with what we've done with God. God was out. Nobody talked about God. God's stock was probably the lowest most people have seen in a very long time. And we brought it back. We brought it back, and we brought it back in a very big way. And so God's very happy with us. And frankly, he wasn't doing a great job, and now he's doing a great job. It's just, it's the best. It's the absolute best. And so Trump bringing God back, taking credit for it it's the most Trump thing. It's the most American thing.
Right up there with his signed, autographed Trump Bibles.
Oh, yeah. No, well, that's just like off the rails, right? Okay. And we're going to have a great Holy Week. He's going to be very happy with how holy the Holy Week is.
Heather's had enough.
Oh, Heather's done. Okay.
I can't get enough.
Okay. And you're in a very sophisticated turtleneck. You're in a philosophical mood today. I feel like you need a fire and a book and a pipe.
I'm mainly just cold in here.
Her eyes are frozen. It's all part of the experience. Okay. That's from Christmas Vacation, Heather. We are going to ponder the details of Holy Week. We have, and I know we're going to put them on the screen, the show notes, our past suffering, we've done the Stations of the Cross and what you encounter at abortion facilities. That's a very good podcast. We'll put that on if somebody wants to listen to that. We're going to get a little bit into the weeds in this one in reflecting on the little things, is that safe to say, that make Holy Week, that we really don't think about the rest of the year. And maybe really don't even think about a lot during Holy Week. But the small details that I think sometimes get brushed over, but that can really, really help us grow. For instance, we're going to talk about nails. And I know I have these moments where you have to hang a picture or you're putting together a desk or something and you actually are like hammering nails and you have a thought, thankfully to Mel Gibson, of this actually went through his wrists, went through his feet, like the excruciating pain, which comes from the word where we get the word crucifix, but excruciating pain of what that must have been like. And I think this week is very significant because the whole world believes in it. We know that Jesus Christ was crucified. So atheists don't say he was never crucified. They say he didn't rise from the dead. And I'm not talking about the goofballs that are still lurking around that are like, he didn't even exist, man. I mean, those people don't count for anything. But everybody acknowledges he died by crucifixion. That is documented with secular sources. And so he went through this brutal version of crucifixion that other criminals didn't have to go through. And I think that this deep dive will really help people kind of see the revelation of that.
Yeah, it's important because I oftentimes think, particularly living in America in the Western Hemisphere, our history is so young, and I think we sometimes, I don't know, how far back do things go in our country? Whereas you can go to the Holy Land, or you can go to Rome, or you can go to these other ancient places in the Eastern Hemisphere, and here's where Jesus walked, and here's where the apostles went, and here are the actual things that are 2,000 years old. And I think it's good to dwell on them.
Yeah, it really is. And this podcast will be changed forever. This is the last one like this because when we do it in the future, Resurrection would have come out. And so Mel Gibson's film will be 2 films. One will be released Holy Week of 2027. The other will be released 40 days later, which will really just be remarkable. I've heard a lot of amazing things about these 2 films, but that's going to change how we talk. The Passion of the Christ changed how we talked about the Passion.
Sure. Yeah.
Certainly how we thought about it.
Very
how
much.
We reflected it. That, in all seriousness, is a great spy. That's actually what we'll do. We watch the Passion on Wednesday, kind of heading into we used to do Good Friday night, and I think after going to Stations of the Cross, and then after Veneration of the Cross, if you've ever been to that, we obviously do the Veneration of the Cross in our parish and our Catholic church, but it's very beautiful. You go through the entire, sequence of the agony in the garden to the crucifixion, and by the time we got home at 8:30 at night, it's like, let's put on the Passion. It's like more Jesus dying, just kind of wore us out. So we do. We watch the Passion every Wednesday night. A great thing to watch. I think everybody should watch it once a year.
I'm curious too because I'm a big advocate of The Chosen, and I don't know if you saw the season they did a year ago, which was
Don't spoil it.
Holy Thursday.
Just kidding.
And it was outstanding.
We just watched that a few days ago.
Okay.
We haven't caught up. We got behind, but we've been watching it with the kids. I think they've done a great job with The Chosen. I don't have a lot of tolerance if we're going to rip our own. Like, there's some just nutso Catholics that are like, that pine needle would have never been that color in Jerusalem. They're just crazy with some of the accuracy. I can't believe, actually, I think the crazy Catholics who don't like it because it's made by a Protestant really hurt themselves because, well, they're going to say I'm an idiot, but I wouldn't have known. The casting of Mary is awful, but that's not like an anti-Catholic thing. That's just bad casting, just some weird old lady that seems like she's like looking for stuff to put in her garage sale, but it's supposed to be Our Lady. It's just bad. Everybody else is cast pretty well. The main characters, particularly Peter and Matthew, are brilliant in their roles. But you wouldn't know or care it was made by a Protestant. Right. Except these lunatic Catholics yelling at it. And the same with the Last Supper. And frankly, if I'm like an evangelical, I've got some issues with how they've done some stuff on the opposite end. But I think it's so good, Catholic, Protestant, evangelical, it doesn't matter. It's so well done. Mm-hmm. And can't we have people that risk, livelihoods and reputation and make things like The Chosen? I think it's phenomenal.
And the people I know who are the professors and they speak the languages and like stuff that's 10 layers deeper than I'll ever get into what was like this is, they tell me it's the most accurate representation of what the culture was like and probably how everything went down. Obviously there's some dramatic license and
sure,
all those sorts of things.
As there should be.
And as there is, this is I think one of the critiques of it is like, well, that didn't really happen. It's like, okay, look at some of the great art that nobody questions, like the Caravaggios and stuff. We don't know that it was exactly like the painting shows it either, but you've got to work with what you have and fill in the rest of the gaps.
Well, there's one thing I don't like about it that I'll share in a minute that's a minor thing. But what I do like, and I think the strength of the Passion, or the Chosen, is that they do things that you read about or happened and you think, yeah, that's probably how that went down realistically. I mean, the apostles just kind of questioning them, like when they're walking, like, where are we going?
Yeah.
I mean, our kids ask that.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet?
Yeah.
Like, and just we would be like leaning over to the next guy, being like, do you know what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And them just sort of being halfway in the dark all the time, which is how we are with Christ. It's not like he's telling us this is what's happening tomorrow.
Hyperbole again, is he being real?
Yeah. I think that's great. I think the real life reactions to some of the miracles, my favorite episode still is the wedding feast at Cana. Because there is this practical, we're watching this happen. The waiter has no answers. There's no AI. There's no like, gotcha. Actually, we just had all this, ocean spray in the back. There's none of that. He just turned all the jugs from water into wine. There's no agenda. There's nobody he coordinated with. That's a really good episode, is Cana. And, I really, really thought that was well done. The only thing that nobody criticizes it for that I can see, but I don't really read that stuff anyways. But just as an observer, that I would like to see a little bit more of is there, as it's gone on, and this may just be natural filming it, there to me is a little too much lack of awe from the apostles to our Lord.
Okay.
And when you read the Gospels and when you see it depicted in other forms of art, for instance, the Transfiguration, Peter, James, and John are falling at the ground, like covering their face.
Yeah.
John sprints out, and sees the resurrected Lord and falls and says, "My Lord and my God." it's a little too casual with their relationship with him
Sure.
than I think probably was the case. I think that's probably just filming years and years and years, because in the beginning it wasn't like that as much, but there's too much of a casual familiarity that's like, hey man, he's our buddy, here we go again, he's doing another miracle, and I just don't think that would have. I think the apostles kept that sort of awe and reverence of yes, I call you friend, but sometimes they go from friend and master to like college buddy,
Sure.
Good to see you again, bro. And it just it's too casual sometimes on that. That is a very small critique that.
I've heard that before. I've heard some describe it as he's too hippie Jesus for me, and with the way that they kind of interact with each other and how he interacts with them.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, and I don't
go
think
that far.
I don't think it's hippie Jesus. I think it's trying to get too cute.
There was a stretch in the middle of it where I was kind of concerned. I was like, is this just kind of like emotional bait? Like here, it's got the payoff and it's predictable. And then they kind of like hit you some real hard stuff. Like, okay, this is more profound and more deep than that. And have you seen, you said you saw
I saw the
Last Supper one?
I saw the Last Supper one.
Okay.
That's very.
the whole season?
I haven't seen that season.
I have not. I have like 2 episodes left.
Okay, it's fantastic. Their filmmaking ability has obviously gone to the next level as they've been making the series. They're doing stuff they haven't done before. But the whole reason that I kind of led into this is the next season, I think, comes out in a year, the same year that The Resurrection by Mel Gibson comes out. I don't know how you do that season of the crucifixion. Wouldn't you just, in lieu of season 6, please just watch Mel Gibson's The Passion?
So I heard, this could be false, they're just skipping it.
Really?
I haven't heard that. Wow.
Because of that. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like you can't even. Everything's going to be compared to The Passion.
Yeah.
I heard he's going to go out for the scourging and they're going to cut and he's going to resurrect. Like they may show the crosses and stuff, but like they're not taking you. They can't do the scourging.
Okay. I haven't heard that. I've heard him do interviews about filming.
In all fairness, if they just say, hey, Mel Gibson filmed this in 2002 and 2003. We've got CGI. We've got technology. We're going to make his look like a cupcake. And they're going to go for it and do CGI and try to out-scourge the first one. But I don't see how you do that.
No.
But to me, yeah, you kind of bow your head and are like, I'm not going to mess with Mel Gibson. And I'm just going to skip over it.
Yeah, there's nothing left to say at that point that I can think of. Maybe they've got, it'll be interesting. We'll see what they come out with, if they do it, if they don't do it. But
they could always show a little thing and then have them do a flashback, and you're just taking them through that way. So you're kind of actually skipping these long. I can't imagine them doing a long, like, scourging sequence.
It's not the same type of film as The Passion is. It's a different thing, and it's fine.
I think they would, I don't know, but it would seem they would know their place in the world and be like, people don't want us to take them through that.
But also, I guess, having watched everything up until this point, if it suddenly went into the brutality of the crucifixion, it would feel like a pretty dramatic plot shift. Not saying they're not going to acknowledge it or recognize it or any of those things, but Mel Gibson was, like, one of the things that was controversial about The Passion, I remember, like, the Roger Ebert review, is he gave it 4 stars. And he said, I'm giving it 4 stars because I think he accomplished what he set out to do. He said, I don't agree with his aim in the film. I think he should have taken a different direction with the film, but he did what he set out to do. And I would be surprised if the Chosen guys were looking to portray the brutality of the crucifixion, if that were their main objective, if they do that season.
But the Roger Ebert thing is the point of why you can't mess with it, because Roger Ebert knows film, and he knows the genius of why Mel Gibson put the camera there, or did this music, or did this, where he's just holding the camera and showing somebody's face, and they blink twice and then he cuts, and all the artistic things that are just brilliant in The Passion. The Chosen does a great job, but it's not brilliant. They're not Mel Gibson. And so I would think that they would probably, I've heard that they're just skipping it.
We'll see, I guess. It's amazing.
And I think Mary Lisa heard that too. I may be totally wrong, but
yeah, we'll see. Because I heard an interview not too long ago with Jonathan Rumi, who portrays Jesus, about how, like, asking him, how are you preparing for that scene of the crucifixion. And I don't really know if they asked specifically about the scourging. I didn't hear anything like that, though. So I don't know. And I don't know how long ago that interview was. I thought it was recent, but maybe it was a year ago.
Well,
Who knows?
look, The Passion came out in 2004, so that's 22 years. If they just say, "Yeah, look at the technology, look at what we learned from that, like we can do it as good or better or close to it, then they should do it. I'll watch it. But so I was at a conference, a Catholic conference, 2019, and I hung out with Jonathan Rumi for like 4 hours.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I hadn't watched The Chosen yet, so I knew who he was.
And nobody had at that point. That was kind of a COVID phenomenon.
Well, maybe it was after it had come out, though.
Right, it was out, but
out.
it didn't catch on until everyone was stuck at home.
Right,
during
it
COVID.
wasn't like a huge thing yet. And I introduced myself, and I said, I don't know anything about you. I just know that you're Jesus. And like he died laughing because as stupid as that sounds, I don't know anything about you. I just know that you're Jesus. Like that's a pretty big deal. But anyways, he was great. He was really great. So let's dive into this. Heather, would you like to start?
Sure. Actually, I am interested in hearing a little bit about your trip to France
Ooh.
last year, Steve, because I first wanted to start by diving a little bit into the Crown of Thorns. I actually learned quite a bit when I was reading up on a lot of this. I've heard that there are relics, of course, authentic relics of some major things, such as the cross of that Peter was crucified and the true cross of Christ and various things. This was the first, or maybe I forgot, this is the first I had heard about where we actually have a relic of the crown of thorns, what they think is the authentic crown of thorns in France, in Notre Dame. And
the priest saved it. The priest ran in there and grabbed the crown of thorns.
yes, he grabbed, I believe, let me see if I can pronounce his name. Matt would, of course, critique me on this, but Father Jean-Marc Fournier
Sounds good to me.
Just awesome name.
was the priest, and he rescued the Eucharist, the relic of the crown of thorns, and also other relics that were held in the church.
And they say the faith is dead in Europe. Father's still standing his ground.
Father Jean-Marc, yes. So really, really interesting. But my mind always goes to, okay, come on. How do we know this is the true crown? With all of these 2,000 plus years now between then and now, how do we know that? And so it was interesting. There's of course a lot of things. There's scarce writings about it for the first few centuries. We see there are 3 of the 4 Gospels that specifically record that he was crowned with a crown of thorns by the Roman soldiers. And so I think, like you said earlier, with the movie The Passion, that really, for many of us, took our imaginations even further than we had ever had before with picturing those scenes. I know the Crown of Thorns scene out of that movie is one of the, I mean, there's several, that are just very wincing is mine, that's the least of it. But golly.
But the crown of thorns, because they take their baton.
Yes.
And they push it down.
Yes.
And
Yes.
everybody's kind of rubbing their head during that scene. They're all rough scenes, but that gets kind of glossed over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mystery, the crowning of thorns. But in the Gospels, it's and then they crowned him with thorns and you move on.
Yes.
Because you think about the thorns that we experience in our day-to-day life. Like, here's the rose bush. Okay, you don't want to slice your finger on it, but the thorn is like,
teeny tiny, yeah.
a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch, something like that.
Yes.
And they weren't these big, like, I don't know, razor sharp, long. And the Passion movie, I think, made that clear what they actually were. That this was not solely they were humiliating by putting a fake crown on him. They were harming him physically in the process of it.
Yes.
Also, I have to think at that point, I know in the movie he's basically just getting beaten the whole time, but if we're trying to think somewhat practically, his legs are obviously like hurting, but not as bad. But after the scourging, the top of his head is kind of the only thing that probably doesn't really hurt. I mean, maybe he took some hits or something, but they didn't scourge his head.
Maybe that landed there accidentally.
It could have been, but it wasn't the main. I mean, his body is done.
Yeah.
And then to have you basically have this little top of your head that is like the one place that doesn't currently have a bruise, and then they shove thorns in it. It was just every ounce of himself was going to suffer.
Yeah.
Well, when I think about when somebody in modern day has some sort of trauma to their head or any sort of really traumatic injury, and they're also under the amount of stress that he was under, which I don't really get into in this outline, talking about the Garden of Gethsemane, when he was under so much stress that he sweat drops of blood, that's like stroke level trauma.
And it's physically possible.
Yes.
People have done that.
And yet he's conscious and alive still during all of this. Maybe he went in and out of consciousness for all we know, but it's just incredible that his body took what it did. There are some various reports, and I think theologians still argue today about the exact type of thorn bush that was used to create the crown of thorns, but the most common one that I saw was the juju. I guess it's pronounced jujube. There's other ones that were called Spina Christi, which was, I guess, renamed later because of the widely believed thought to be the crown of thorns, what it was made of. But it had a lot of reports were saying that it had a straight and curved spines, which is evidenced by existing authentic relics, which actually indicates that the shape of the crown was most likely a helmet rather than just a ring.
Okay.
And I could see that too. And so that if you think about that, kind of that helmet of spines and thorns and stuff going across, and then they were taking the reeds and beating it on his head, which again, it says in a couple of the Gospels, they hit him on the head with that. You can see the scene in the Passion of the Christ where they beat it on him several times, and you can just see it sinking, and you can see the blood, coming out. And to me, I was thinking about like, that could what wasn't portrayed in there could have also been like gotten into his eye. He could have had like blood vessels from his eyes punctured from that with all of that beating. And so now what was interesting was when I saw pictures of the relic.
Yeah.
It's encased. And I guess there was 3 parts. The crown was broken up into 3 parts. So there are gold rings around the parts where they are separated to keep it together, and it's encased in like this. It's not silicone, but it's some sort of where you can see through it and you can see the actual material without the thorns. So it's just the spines of the crown. It's not the crown. And to me, like, I actually was kind of disappointed when I saw the pictures of it, because I thought, me being whatever German, call it my German, I was like, no, I want to see the original in a box.
See the original.
Like, what? Why has it been altered?
Yeah.
I think that they broke off the thorns and then gave them as relics to different people around.
That's what
Europe.
I think in like the 11th century,
yeah.
the Venetians, before it made it to the King Louis IX, the Venetians broke off somewhere around 70 thorns and distributed those as relics, and God only knows where all of those are and how many of them still exist today and all of that. But
you're from Spring, but St. James, which is a little church in Spring, has some phenomenal relics. And I go back and forth because I understand why they did it 1,100 years ago, because they realized not everybody's going to be able to travel to Paris.
Yeah.
Most people are never going to get outside their town. So the idea was same with the True Cross. They break it up so that they can get it throughout Europe or beyond. Now that would just be unnecessary. We could just if most of the True Cross was still put together, like it looked like an actual cross, you and I, we would just fly there at some point in our life and go see it.
Yeah.
And thank St. Helen for going and finding it.
Yep.
But, Annunciation has a pretty good little chunk of the True Cross because Father Felix was pastor of the Shrine of the True Cross in Houston for a long time.
Wow.
So he got a really decent relic. He was gifted, and
Wow.
so we have it at the Veneration of the Cross. It's very powerful. Where we and the True Cross was protected throughout history by the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre because they kept trying to steal the True Cross. So it became the security issue of where the True Cross was.
We'll have on Friday the Stations of the Cross in front of Planned Parenthood, and the Father Rick Heilman always brings out a relic of the True Cross, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Wow.
And the whole thing is they break all this stuff up when, and kind of distribute it to different churches. And I didn't realize that was the case with the crown, that they took the thorns off. And the crown, though, would be worth just get on your buggy or your airplane and go to Paris.
People did weird stuff.
People did weird
And
stuff.
I know there's...
And we continue to do weird stuff today.
Yeah, now we're criticizing the ancients.
But you kind of ask, like, how do we know? Like, we can't know for sure, right?
Yeah.
They weren't issuing a certificate of authenticity signed by Pontius Pilate or something like that.
Well, they were in a lot of these relics. I mean, they have to be authentic. I'm not I question the relics guy, because the problem is we found the True Cross. We knew where it was. And St. Helen, who had tons of money and had the Roman Empire on her side, went and found it. And then they really preserved it. I mean, I don't think we give early Christians enough credit.
Right.
Yeah.
For
But that's kind of why I'm saying they didn't. There's no it wasn't like Pontius Pilate was there signing off on this is it, because they knew that they were going to share this and that there would be a custody of it throughout the ages.
Sure.
They didn't need to start by proving it.
right.
That's a good point.
But when somebody's like, how do you know that's the bone of St. Francis of Assisi or whatever, that's what it is. They didn't go and get like a dead squirrel and be like, that's part of his femur.
Now you've got the debunkers, right? Oh, well, there's no evidence that this existed until whenever, 'cause nobody thought there needed to be. But there are certain things that are pretty good evidence. I remember it's kind of funny because if you're in northern Italy, many people will know that the body of St. Mark is at St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice. It's there. People go visit it. You wait in line, all those sorts of things. If you go like 20 or 30 miles out to another town, they've got Luke there, and it's not a big deal. You just walk up and like, is this Luke? I think that says, I don't know Italian. Yeah. You Google it. Yeah, it's Luke. It's just not as big of a deal. It's odd. But there's certain ways that you can kind of tell that what it claims to be, it actually is. One of them being that they were like fighting with the Eastern Orthodox over it. And they came to an agreement, like, you take this part, we'll take that part. And for the crown of thorns, I don't know. This is in my category of I'm Catholic, but there's certain Catholic things I don't understand. King Louis IX paid huge money for it. He paid just a king's ransom for it. And you don't do that unless you're pretty doggone confident that you're getting what you paid for.
And it's all that stuff was documented, and it's like, okay, well, where are his real bones? I mean, some of it is just overdone with the skepticism. Particularly from a group of people who believe Jesus rose from the dead.
Yes, that's odd.
Like that being Thomas Aquinas' tooth is not controversial. Jesus rising from the dead is controversial. The only relic weird thing I understand is if somebody, Catholic or not, is like, fine, like, I don't care. I don't need to go see St. Mark's tomb.
Yeah.
Like, I have Jesus, or I have the Eucharist. Like, you could go to Mass and eat the body and blood of Christ, or you can go see the piece of tree he was, crucified on. I get like the I don't care crowd.
Yes.
And I don't care about a lot of relics, I'll be honest. But there are some that I think are pretty cool. I would like to see the finger of John the Baptist, not producer John the Baptist, although cutting his finger off may be justified sometimes. But the finger of John the Baptist for behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. He's pointing.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
now I'm blanking on which altar that's buried in Rome. But perhaps it's the Cathedral of John the Baptist. I just made that up. But I would like to see that. I'd like to see, I'm a True Cross guy. I love that. But I don't know if there's. I saw Saint Bernadette's hand. That was cool, but
When you were in Rome, did you see the Holy Stairs?
no.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's the stairs that our Lord went up on his trial with Pilate. And so St. Helen brought those back too.
Okay, that's awesome.
And so they've got them, they're marble and they're encased in wood, and you go up them on your knees.
The actual stairs were marble,
Yes.
and then they encased them in wood to protect the marble.
Yes. And so then there's little slits. You can reach in and touch them, but you're not going to there's not going to be any erosion issue or somebody there with their chisel.
Right.
Like, I'm going to take a piece of the
piece.
Holy Stairs. It's not like that. But you go up them on your knees. As Catholics, we did it. We prayed. It was awesome. We prayed the rosary going up on our knees. So we were praying the sorrowful mysteries where the sorrowful mysteries happen.
Okay, that's pretty
cool.
awesome. That's awesome.
So that's a lot of fun. And it's wild then because you see like other tour guides come by and like, and here's the Holy Stairs. And someone snaps a photo and then they move on to
You're on your knees like a
the Trevi
psycho.
Fountain.
That's right.
Yeah. So you had mentioned
great.
Rome. So yeah, the Crown of Thorns, they built Sainte-Chapelle.
Yes.
St. King Louis IX built Sainte-Chapelle to hold it. That's still there. It doesn't hold the Crown of Thorns anymore. It's awesome. It's just wall-to-wall stained glass. We went to Notre Dame, and they only display the Crown of Thorns, I want to say
On
like
Fridays.
the first Friday or something like that of the month. And so we weren't,
That's right.
we weren't able to be there on a Friday.
Okay.
But they do have it
That's pretty awesome.
in the reliquary in the case, and so it was cool. My mom had just died, so we were in a very pilgrim mode type of trip. So we were praying for her everywhere. So I was like, light a candle next to the Crown of Thorns. And here's the greatest thing: is I'm a big candle guy. I love going to churches and lighting candles. I think it's just like a beautiful little offering to God. It's something you offer Him, but it doesn't matter. It's just a candle, but just act of devotion. I think it's powerful.
Yep.
Here's the tacky part about it: is you're there. And because everything's electronic right now, you can throw your $3 in, but it's like touch your credit card to the reader. And so you're there and you're praying and beep, like very loud.
See, this is what's great about Annunciation is they're old school in downtown Houston, and you have to light the candle.
There in France, literally, they're collection baskets where you got the usher come down with a big stick with a basket on the end. It had a card reader.
No, I've never seen or heard
I actually wish we had that. And why are we not as modern as the French when it comes to Catholicism?
Look, I drew the line at I started seeing pews where they had little QR codes laminated and taped to the back of the pew in front of you, like give here. Like at least that's somewhat discreet still. But
I don't like
a card
them on the
reader
pews.
on the passing out thing.
It's safer.
Oh, God.
Listen to me.
Let's just do things because
But you
they're
were writing
more convenient
you're
and
gonna
safer.
write a check and put it in a basket for the usher to go and drain your account later and all that
Or
stuff.
just have cash like an insane person.
Everybody gives you just
Or give online.
That's
later,
what we do. We give online.
Not like right
but then
there.
but then when
That
the
just-
basket's passing, nobody's doing it. But if everybody has a credit card,
I know.
So if you're passing the basket and they're not dinging themselves, it's the public shame.
Oh,
which is what the church
man.
survives on. So,
jeez.
yeah,
Now we're getting off topic.
Yeah, I forget what I was gonna say as far as relics, but the stairs, that's pretty awesome.
It was cool. The crown, even though we didn't get to see it, being by it was amazing. This doesn't have anything to do so much directly with the Passion, but I'm going to mention it because we're adjacent to it. We went to Chartres, and they have the garment that Our Lady was wearing when she gave birth to the Lord. So that was that we got to see, and that was cool. And if you read the secular sources, like nobody knows where this was.
Right.
Like some of the other things, they do the carbon dating. They're like, yeah, this is 2,000 years old. And the fabric is from where it's supposed to be from and everything.
It's
so
so
pretty
funny.
cool.
It's so funny that certain people don't want it to be authentic.
Right.
Like, what does that mean? Jesus didn't rise from the dead?
I think some people like who
Because
are
Mary's
just
cloak was inaccurate?
well, of course not. I think people who are natural skeptics just are afraid of believing in something that's not true, of believing a myth. And they'd rather just be like, I'm not going to believe it till I, whatever.
But
and
it's
yes,
so fun to believe that. It's not Santa Claus. It's not a complete lie. That could be. I have no reason to believe it's not.
Yeah.
That's not John the Baptist's skull. Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck with the rest of your miserable day.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out, there are people like John Calvin who were complete 100% these are no true relics. This is all a lie, and these are all idolatry. And I can see how people would think that with veneration of relics.
And if that's true, he's right?
Exactly.
So I'm on his side as far as, look,
yes,
if the whole system's rigged,
yes,
it's idolatry.
Idolatry.
Whatever.
Adultery.
Little of both.
Who's been dipping into that scotch?
Adultery. One's a lot more fun than the other. That I can tell you. No,
That's the most appropriate Trump voice.
As my daughter would say, unappropriate.
Unappropriate.
But that's scary for Calvin.
Yes, it is.
If he's wrong, and I've seen, for instance, the bones of St. James, okay, first Bishop of Jerusalem, martyred, beheaded. So that's awesome, right? But how disrespectful to St. James is Calvin?
Yeah.
Like, listen, you punk that came along 1,600 years after I got my head cut off. You don't know crap. Like, it's just risky for John Calvin. That's a big thing to be wrong on, that none of these are authentic and it's a scam by the Catholic Church.
And for those who are Catholic, evangelical, Protestant alike, kind of wondering, like, you know, you said there's a crowd that you could go get along with. That's the who cares crowd.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
I get
fine,
it.
Whatever.
Right.
And I get that.
There's
too.
Catholics in that.
And there's quite a few Catholics. I think it's
I'm
important.
halfway who cares guy.
I think it's important for us, though, because so many people, including Catholics, don't understand relics. They don't understand the point. Why do we venerate? What's the big deal? What do you mean display one first Friday every month? What's the point of that? And how is that not, more importantly, how is that not idolatry? Idolatry, as Sean says. New word. How is that not? And I think one of the best examples of showing the power that can be with these relics, always the source of the power is God. It's never never it should be a superstitious, there's power within this object, because that is idolatry. But you think about
have granny and a canister on their mantle.
Right, maybe. But
we can't look at the true cross.
And even more so,
you've got your grandma awkwardly in your fireplace. How do you know those are really her ashes? What if they confused it?
You don't.
What if it was?
That's a whole other story.
What if Billy Bob died of cancer and they switched the two cremation pits and you've got Billy Bob on your...
You're opening up an urn of worms there, because that stuff really happens.
I know.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's why we shouldn't be cremated, frankly. But
I want to...
That ain't Granny. That's Billy Bob.
I want to point out the story in the gospel, though, with the... oh my gosh, which is Matthew chapter 9, the woman who is hemorrhaging for 12 years and touches the cloak of Jesus, and he immediately feels the power come from him and go
Good
through
one,
him
Heather.
to her. Like, that's an example of a relic and the power that God can have through these items. And so I think...
The mud and the blind man?
The mud and the blind man, exactly.
Would you go pick up...
The mud itself is not magical.
If he walks off, would you run up and grab a little of the mud?
I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not an idolater.
An idolater, right. And I think...
That's the Apple version of adultery.
Good.
The iPhone. That's definitely adultery.
Yeah. But good on the people who would criticize that as idolatry, because if you are using this as a superstition, like I'm going to I have possession of this relic, I'm going to take it with me because I believe it has powers in and of itself. I'm going to put it on my dashboard, and that way I can drive like a maniac, and it's going to prevent me from having an accident. Like that's the wrong way to look at this. And so I think the proper way of looking at these things is it points to God's power. And that's how we should be doing that. So
I think it's always hard to start your own church based on yourself and then call others idolaters. That's a tough one for me.
Yeah.
But I'm just idolaters. I knew John the Baptist I knew John the Baptist was like, okay, they're making some good points, even though I'm still creeped out by the relics. Yeah, I am on both sides. I can never see another relic again in my life, and I'm fine. Most of the ones I've seen were by accident. It just happened to be there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does lift you up. I would love to see the crown of thorns. I think that would be awesome. Anything that draws you closer to Jesus.
Yes.
And if it doesn't, great. If it does, good. But I don't think we should be looking around going, what do you mean you've never seen the toe of Therese Lisieux? I'm like, I've just never seen it. Frankly, I don't know if I want to see it. It sounds pretty old.
Looks,
Yeah.
doesn't sound,
And
I don't want to look at my own toes.
I don't want to look at my own toes. Got a fungus issue nobody's been able to identify. But yeah, there's just some of that where we get to, it also gets a little cute. Like, and then we went to we saw the wrist of Catherine of Siena or whatever, and it just gets a little out of control. This is my view. I know that, that there are some, I can't stand ugly churches. So I'll probably never go to Fatima. I would love to go to Fatima, but I've heard the cathedral's ugly.
Oh.
And that's an issue for me.
Some of them are ugly, but there's
some ones worth seeing.
There's like the main one is gorgeous.
I can't stand having a beautiful church that you're no longer allowed into in a new church that was designed by some satanic bishop that's ugly as sin and should be burned to the ground.
You must love the 1950s Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe then.
I'm not making any comments out of respect for Mexico and Our Lady of Guadalupe, but yes, they need to take the tilma out and burn the thing to the ground.
And go back to the original church.
No, there are some churches, I've seen one in Poland, where you could argue people sat down at a table like this and they were like, we needed to sign something that will kill people's faith in God.
That's why the Guadalupe
Basilica.
Basilica was designed.
I know. It's actually satanic, I think, as far as the design.
But then the designer converted.
I know.
It's cool.
And that's another one, because I did want to go to Guadalupe, and it was overwhelming for me as a positive experience. And then I didn't care about the ugly church and all, thinking about real things in life at that point. But it was very moving to see the tilma. It's very, very powerful. And I know a lot of non-Catholics who,
On that tarmac movie.
and they're like, everybody says that. It's so distracting. Not the movement, the fact that people dwell on that. I'm like getting ready to see the tilma. And for the listeners, you get on it's
People
like at the
mover.
airport.
Conveyor belt.
A conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And which is smart.
Yeah.
Because
Make you
otherwise
move
people will
along.
stand there
Yep.
and you won't be able to see it. So it's actually, the system is smart, but I don't know if we're just Americans and we got to comment on everything. But it's like, people are like, we're on a conveyor belt. It's like being at Kmart at the airport. And I'm like, shut up. The tilma's coming up. Like, it's just one of those where people, even you just brought it up. We comment about the conveyor belt. It's like, they have to get people through somehow. I don't care about that part. The part was the Juan Diego and the entire conversion of Mexico. That's what I was more interested in.
You want to know a great story about the global reach of 40 Days for Life?
Yes.
I got on the conveyor belt. I got to the end. Someone tapped me on the shoulder and in broken English said, "Are you the 40 Days for Life guy?"
Awesome. That's great. That's great. Are you the guy that likes grape soda?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay, we got to get
Beautiful.
back. Yes, so we're pro relic and we understand if you don't care. But don't be the skeptical guy. Come on. It's a 2,000-year-old religion. There's a lot of dead martyrs and saints, and there were a lot of good people that collected their bones and buried them. I saw the bones of St. Peter. You take an atheist on that tour, they're going to convert.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. No feet, Steve. No feet, because they cut him down from the cross and buried his body.
So the thorn to kind of wrap up the crown of thorns. My thought was too then, especially reading about how the Venetians and some other, like the Byzantines, they broke off the thorns to make relics and to distribute them. And I was like, well, how long are these thorns? Because I was trying to think about all the portrayals. You've got Jesus of Nazareth, you've got the Passion of the Christ, and I was like, those look like almost like thorn bushes, maybe a little bit bigger thorns. But how big were those actual thorns if you look at the plant, the jujube plant? And some of them will say, 4 centimeters, some will say several inches. Maybe it was both. But either way, they were very sharp, and no thorns are going to feel good being pounded into your head. And then I started thinking about the nails, and I remember learning, maybe it was when the Passion came out. I had never heard for a long time until probably around the time that movie about the debate whether the nails were through his palms or through his wrists.
I was always taught it was through his wrist because that's what would hold it. So
Yeah.
this was like this is how you crucify somebody using nails.
Yes.
And
yeah.
so it's through the wrist. In the movie, they do the palm.
They do, yeah.
Is that for artistic license because it's Mel Gibson's hand, or they want to show the nail going into the hands? However, let's really start freaking people out. What happens when you get the stigmata? Is it in your palm or is it in your wrist?
Yes, and that's what I've always wondered too. Is like if it was in the wrist, Padre Pio had the stigmata, did he not? In his
There have been stigmata in both, which
Okay.
the skeptics will say proves that it's psychosomatic, as though you can just think hard enough and develop a wound in your hand.
All right.
I think
wow.
I think it's ultimately the Lord is kind of working with what we know in advance, and so just as Catholics, the apparitions of Mary, she may appear in the culture. The Lord is maybe going to grant you the stigmata in accordance with your understanding of how it happened. There's also the fact that I'd been reading a little bit about this. I don't know. I can't vouch entirely for the accuracy. There's a certain way you can kind of hit the wrist and depending one on one side and one on the other.
Yes, I've read that too. Yeah, that's true. Where
What are you
it's kind of
talking
in
about?
both.
So like,
The angle of the nail.
yeah, if you kind of go through the wrist here, and then it's going to come out through the back of the hand.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
Like
that's interesting. And
What about the theory, if you watch The Passion and you take into account what Jesus is going through, what about the argument, I don't think this is a heresy, but that his divinity is actually keeping him alive? Like no one would even be alive by the time he gets to Calvary. He'd have bled out.
I've wondered about that myself.
Yeah.
Like Jesus falls the first time. Like how are you getting up from that?
There's also, this is beautiful and something I didn't realize till you were talking about this. A normal person in that circumstance wouldn't be able to help. But at some point when he's carrying the cross, you would just rip the crown off and throw it on the ground.
Yes.
You would take it off.
Yes.
It's the only, you can't get rid of your wounds from the scourging. But the whole, this is annoying, I got to get out of this thing. Unless maybe the slight touch of it causes more pain.
Probably so.
But
Don't move it. Yeah.
Nevertheless, he left it in.
Yeah.
That's, I think, pretty powerful. But how just the blood loss, he wouldn't be conscious. So you'd have to have some divine inspiration at minimum, or be God himself, to even physically get to the point where he's being crucified. So
Because he hung on the cross for hours and he was and again, there's criticism that it wasn't enough blood, and then other criticism that it was too much blood displayed in the Passion of the Christ and the scourging scene. What sticks out to me, I have not watched the movie in its entirety except maybe twice.
Okay.
Like I watched it in theaters when it came out. I think I watched it once in its entirety in college, and every other time I've sat down to start watching it, I just don't.
okay, which is good. And I know I said you should watch it once a year, but that's for like people who are into it.
And of course, I've seen scenes of it over and over and over again.
And capacity-wise, it's hard.
But I remember being in the theater and watching the scene with this, and the scourging was hard enough. I mean, you're wincing, you're like looking away. It's just too much. You can't bear it. I remember just being like, oh my gosh, I lost it in the theater when Mary comes and takes cloths and starts trying to clean up his blood. And there was just so much blood. And I'm like, what do you do at that point? Like that if that was real, I don't know. But like it just seemed like what an act of love, and there's nothing else for me to do right now, and I have to do something.
Yeah, I have to do something.
And so she's like cleaning up she's wiping up the blood. That just really stuck.
It's very motherly, of just having to contribute something in the midst of your son's suffering.
And that they whipped him 39 times because that was what they had determined was one less than the amount of times that it would take to kill you. So they whipped him 39 times and then hung him on a cross for hours, and the blood loss. And when I think of the nails going through his hands, obviously these aren't nails that you're hanging a picture up on a wall with. I think of railroad spikes. Mm-hmm. That's what I always think of. And so then I was like, how long is a railroad spike? So I looked that up, and I was finding that it was anywhere from 5 to 7 inches is a typical length of a railroad spike, and usually about 3/8 of an inch wide.
It'd have to be able to break small bones.
Yes. Yeah.
But I thought you were going to say also one of the roughest points of the Passion. I think the scourging is the winner in that. But when they flip him over on the cross, that's one where that's the reason you can't have, there's a lot of reasons you can't have little kids watch it. But anytime I have a child who's old enough to watch it, and even all of us older people and adults in the room, when they flip him over, there's always a, ugh.
That moment for me is when they've got the one arm nailed in and they're trying to get the other one and it won't quite.
Extended shoulder.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
People don't even need to watch the movie. We're just going to take them through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, every excruciating scene. Okay. The wounds as evidenced by the shroud. We've talked about the shroud a lot. There's the shroud in Turin. So researchers have found 13 wounds on the forehead and 20 on the back of his head. So this is the crown.
Now, this is yes, that's the crown. Automatically, the skeptic comes out at me. I'm like, really? How are you going to tell that from a cloth? But if it's wrapped around him and he's still bleeding, and they're looking at where the blood most likely comes from, where it's concentrated the most and where it's spreading out, which is phenomenal. They can even do that. That was amazing too. So, yes, the Shroud of Turin is. We could do multiple episodes on that alone, and all the skeptics with that, and how that's fake, and that wasn't all the things that surrounded that, and how they came back and debunked all the debunking of the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin.
They debunked it, and then they debunked the debunking, and the main guy, the main scientist who was an atheist, converted.
Yes. Yeah.
Because of the light. There were two things with the image of the shroud. It's quite phenomenal. The image could only be portrayed on the cloth due to extreme burst of light. And
That's right. Yeah.
the way the wounds, this is awesome, creepy. The way the wounds were imprinted on the cloth, the subject would have had to gone into the cloth, which in this case would mean that the subject, the body, would have needed to levitate into the cloth to imprint it the way that it did. Okay. And that's what converted him.
The latest debunking is, well, we ran it through AI and blood wouldn't have dripped down a corpse like that. Okay, how'd they make it then?
I like when Steve has the skeptics that sound like morons. I know I do that too. Hey, man. What about incest and rape? But yeah, Steve has the dumb skeptic. The skeptics are never smart in this podcast. We really got to work on that. Like, we got to be fair, Okay. Speaking of us versus them, this is going to be a big AI problem, because the second coming of Christ is going to be a mess because of AI.
Yeah.
They're going to have footage of him healing somebody in Jerusalem. We're going to be like, that's CGI.
Oh, no.
It's AI. Oh, that guy doesn't look anything like Jim Caviezel.
Or Jonathan
Or
Rumi.
Jonathan Rumi. It's terrible. Okay, so us versus them. Not I, Lord. Is it I, Lord?
So these are the various answers from the disciples at the Last Supper.
Which I'm Irish Catholic, so I punish Jesus through the Passion. I'm that Roman soldier. I'm just beating myself up the whole time. But it's tempting in these movies to be like, man, the Jews and Romans were jerks.
Yes. That's exactly the point.
I had a really bitter, fallen away Jewish professor at A&M, and he said that Christian Aggies would be the first to yell, crucify him, and you all think you're so self-righteous. And I raised my hand and I was like, that's the point.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? I was like, that's why we believe. That's the point, is that we're sinners and we would say crucify him, and our sins did in fact crucify him. That's the message of the gospel. The point is we're yelling, crucify him. And I said, and
And we read that
Good
every
Friday
year.
and Palm Sunday,
Yes.
the crowd in the church, the congregation says, crucify him, crucify. Those are our only lines of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Crucify. I was like, that's the point. We're the Pharisees.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
He didn't. He said, okay, and moved on. Like, he didn't make a scene.
Thank you for your insights.
Yeah, thank you for your, yeah, exactly. But I was like, that's the, and then it was cool because I had, and I knew, like we'd always argue with the professor because he was crazy. But we had like a really good Baptist kid who knew scripture and would just dart off like 80 scriptures at the professor. But the professor's like, I don't care. I don't even believe in the Bible. And so we would like tag team. So I knew I had him and he was vocal. So when I said that, he gave me the big amen. And I was like, all right, we got momentum. Let's kill him. Yeah. So, okay.
But I think going along those lines is, I think we tend to read through the Passion or read, like we can read through the Last Supper where Jesus proclaims one of them is going to betray him. And that's the general answer of all the disciples is like, oh my gosh, is it I? For some of them, that's really a humble thought instead of saying, well, not me. And I think a lot of times we are I wouldn't. We're the spectator thinking, no, not me. I believe you, Lord.
You say so.
Yeah.
Well, the look on Peter's face when he busts through the door after he betrays Jesus in the Passion of the Christ, awesome. Where he confronts Mary and he's on his knees crying. Beautiful, beautiful job in that whole thing. Judas taking the money and kind of shoving it in his face and then throwing it down and it torturing him. Like, we can all relate to that. That's so good when we're at our bottom.
Yes.
So yeah, crucify him. And this is the classic, well, I mean, if I were in Nazi Germany, I would have definitely spoke up against those guys and laid my life down for the Jews. And we get to come back with the crazy pro-life answer, but do you do it now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we get to look really self-righteous of, do you do anything for the unborn? It's going on again. Same things happening again. Okay. Jesus fulfills the scriptures of the Old Testament. Here we go. Matthew 26:53. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But then how would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must come to pass this way? So, and Jesus doesn't avoid suffering. He shows us how to suffer.
Well, we don't avoid. I think that's. I don't know how common and prevalent this still is among a lot of people who would identify as Christian or Christ followers. Just thinking that, like, once they get to a point where they're going through a hard time, their aunt gets cancer, their whatever difficulty, their house gets taken away by a tornado. I don't understand why the Lord would do this to us. It's a misunderstanding that too many of us have, that he died on the cross so we wouldn't have to suffer. That's not, he's guaranteeing suffering in life. And we have this misconception. And so to know when we're facing these things and to go through them and say, okay, I'm suffering, I'm going to align this, and I know that when I'm suffering, I'm closer to the Lord this way. Like, we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah. And that to me, that's been very clear. That's a recent self-help health and wealth gospel, because
Yep. I think you're going to bring that up.
if you wish to be my disciple, deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't say you're going to suffer, then
How do you miss that?
yeah, you can't miss that. So no, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's a great reminder whether you participate in 40 Days for Life or in any aspect of the pro-life movement, is you're going to have those thorns and you're going to have those crosses, and you can carry those on behalf of life in the face of death. And he just gives us this beautiful example. And I think, as we talked about on the Lent podcast, if you're not going to give up chocolate, if you're not going to fix this thing in your daily life, if you're not going to do it during this time in Lent, when are you going to do it throughout the rest of the year? And this is especially so for Holy Week. If we're not going to reflect on the actual physical suffering and the meaning of this week in our own lives and in the lives of our family and of our culture, when are we doing it the rest of the year? It's like, well, I don't want to think about Jesus dying on the cross. Well, number one, that's a good thing to think about. And number two, if we don't reflect on it this week, we're never going to do it. And so he's just resurrected all the time. And if the answer is yes, that's great. But the resurrection doesn't mean anything without the cross.
Exactly.
The resurrection is powerful because he did die and because he was tortured.
And Paul reminds us he preaches Christ crucified.
Yes, he does.
So for all the naysayers that don't like crucifixes because it has the body and Jesus is already resurrected.
I don't think, is there still an anti-crucifix crowd?
Oh, yeah.
Producer John the Baptist?
He automatically looks at it.
We're going to get you a crucifix.
Surely it is not I.
Surely it's not I.
And okay. I think just in general, when I see producer John coming around, I think I'm going to just hold up a little crucifix and just see what happens. Holy water. Whoa. His head spun around. What's going on? It burns. It burns.
I want to read this just as I think it's great to leave off with this as we're entering Holy Week, or we're in.
Instead of quoting The Exorcist.
Instead of quoting The Exorcist. Okay, so this is from the Lenten Companion for the Magnificat. Thank you, 40 Days for Life. My loving Father, give me the comfort of knowing myself in the light of your mercy. Do not allow me to be discouraged by my weaknesses and sin, but fill me with the Spirit of your Son, which again is not, the whole point of Holy Week is not just to stop there and be doom and gloom and despair. Point of it is that there's hope.
Of course there's hope. There's great hope. That's why this week did in fact change the world. We hope it continues to change us and change you and lead you closer to a beautiful, fruitful, hopeful, and joyful relationship with Jesus Christ, who is the author of life. So we hope you have a wonderful Holy Week and a happy Easter and Easter season. We know Steve will be celebrating with grape soda, baby, on Easter Sunday. The grape soda is going to be flowing like wine in Steve's house. So please rate, review, and share this podcast, and we will see you next time. God bless you.